we are going to hit on the other games just pretty quickly. No, Indiana is getting 7.5 points versus Notre Dame on Friday night. The over-under is 51. What do you think about this game?
It's hard for me to pick against Cignetti just because Cignetti is who he is. But I think most people's opinion of Notre Dame is built around like 2 games this year, the A&M game at the start and then the NIU game the next week. And so they've been playing really, really good defense. As of late, their defense is really solid. It's hard for me to pick against them. I just think they've been playing really good football to close the year. I think their defense is one of the better units in the country. In Indiana, like it sucks to say it, but like their biggest competition this year, they kind of got ran off the field. So it's hard for me to pick against Notre Dame.
Yeah, I'm going to take Notre Dame to win. I really want to take Indiana to cover. I'm just not sure. I could see them losing this game like by 8 or 9 points, and then you don't cover. I think Indiana's a decent football team. I don't think they're bad at all. I know I've heard a bunch of people say that. That Ohio State game was a little bit closer than people want to lead on just because you had the 2 special teams turnover. The guy dropped a punt inside their own 10-yard line, and I just don't see that happening in this game. I think this game's low scoring. Like, if I had to hammer anything, I'm hammering the under. I don't see this going over. I think it's going to be low scoring.
It's going to be the Big Ten special. Everybody's going to hate it, but it's going to be great football.
Yeah, I think it'll be like 24-13 or something like that, 24-17. Something. It would not shock me, honestly, if I'm going to pick an upset. Listen, I don't consider Tennessee Ohio State an upset. I know we're going to get to that game next. This would be the one. I think Indiana could beat Notre Dame just because Notre Dame is not a pass heavy, can run you off the field offense. For them to beat you, they're going to have to run it down your throat. Ohio State didn't even really run it down Indiana's throat. They threw it all over them, but Riley Leonard with those wide receivers is not throwing it all over Indiana. So
no,
I think it's going to be a low scoring game. I'm going to take Notre Dame, but I think it's a good football game.
Absolutely. I think it's going to be defensive football. It's going to be old school stuff, which is what I love.
Yeah. Next up, Tennessee versus Ohio State. I know there's all this talk about Tennessee coming in droves to the Horseshoe. That's going to be interesting if that is the case. This is an interesting game. I'm surprised it's 7 points because to me, Ohio State struggles with teams like this. Tennessee can run the ball and then play defense. We just saw them lose to a team in Michigan that can run the ball and play defense. And guess what? Tennessee's a better defensive team than Michigan. They're better at running the ball than Michigan, and they have a better quarterback than Michigan. So I don't know why this line's so heavily towards Ohio State. I do think Ohio State wins the football game, but I would take Tennessee in the 7 points. I think it's going to be a slugfest. These are both really good defenses. I think, in my opinion, I think Texas has the best defense, and then the second best defense is either Ohio State or Tennessee. So it's going to be a really good game.
Yeah, and I think the weather's going to be pretty nasty, so I'm curious to see what that does to Ohio State's offense. I think they'll probably have to run the ball more, and they like as much as like they prove that they maybe struggle to run the ball with the Michigan game, right? They were unable to run the ball and they needed to against Michigan. So I think Tennessee has a puncher's chance in this. Tennessee also struggles when you punch them in the mouth, though. They're not the most physical football team in the world, which is part and parcel of there's the system that they run in Josh Heupel's offense and all those things. But this one's I think probably the toughest pick for me. My head says Ohio State. My heart says Tennessee. I don't know why. I've got some friends that are Tennessee fans. I think Tennessee can come in. And again, I think the weather's going to be a factor. I think it's going to be a low scoring game. I think 46.5 probably feels like a solid line. I might take the under on that just because it's got the potential to be cold and wet, which you always want to take the under when the weather's like that.
Yeah, I think, honestly, it comes down to offensive line play. Tennessee's has kind of been shaky all year. Then Ohio State's suffering with, Josh Simmons out at left tackle and Seth McLaughlin out at center. I heard today they're thinking about rotating centers, which is crazy. You're going to do that in a college football playoff game.
That's wild to me.
Yeah, so yeah, that's true.
Game, don't rotate centers.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. I don't feel good about that. We'll see what happens with that. I don't know if that's just a report, if they're feeling it out. But we'll see. Their offensive line has not looked great since losing those 2 guys. And guess what? That's to be expected. If Texas lost Kelvin Banks for the whole year and Jake Majors, they would take a step back as well. Yeah. But especially Ohio State, because Ohio State really doesn't have the depth on the offensive line like they used to. So it's going to be interesting what happens in this game. I honestly think whatever offensive line can control that opposing defensive line is going to win the football game. I think that's what it's going to come down to.
You're not going to hear me argue that.
Next up, we have a game I'm just getting weird feelings about. I don't know why. I like Penn State more than most people, but no one, literally, I don't think any human being I've seen is even giving SMU any chance in this game. I've seen nobody even saying, you know what, I could see it. I see no one saying that. So I don't know what to feel about this game. How do you feel about this game?
This is an SMU team that took Clemson. I mean, had a chance to take Clemson to overtime if it's not for a weird special team situation at the end. So I think SMU is a really solid football team. Which James Franklin do we get? Do we get big game James or do we get big game James? Right. So I think that's going to be the question. There's still an opportunity for Penn State to kind of fulfill James Franklin's manifest destiny of losing a home playoff opener. It's hard for me to pick against the Lions. I think their defense is good. I think Drew Aller already said he's coming back, but I think Drew Aller has an opportunity to be a really, really great quarterback next year, probably one of the top couple of quarterbacks in the country next year. And I think that Andy Kotelnicki has seemingly figured out some things with his offense. I really like Kotelnicki's offense. I like him as an offensive coordinator. I think he's probably one of the top 10 probably offensive coordinators in the country easily. It's just hard for me to pick against Penn State, but it's not a shot at SMU because I think SMU is a really talented team, especially when they made after making that quarterback change. I really think they found the right stride. They found the right groove. They're a tough team. They don't run an offense that don't necessarily make you think that they're a tough team, but they're a tough squad. But ultimately, I just think the talent of Penn State, the scheme, the environment, I think all of those things are going to play together. And I've got Penn State in this one.
Yeah, it's interesting because Kevin Jennings, super mobile guy, and I think this game is similar to the to the Texas Clemson game. I think for them to win, I think he's going to have to throw for 200, 250 yards and run for 75 to 100 yards. And I think if SMU's smart, I think I would run a lot of play action bootlegs away from Abdul Carter. You see this from the Patriots back in the day when they would face TJ Watt or Von Miller. They would leave that guy unguarded and make him decide whether you want to crash down versus the run or go after the play action bootleg type of play. And I think that's how you handle him. You don't want to run at him. You don't want to do anything like that. But you just want to run and confuse them away from the play and just get them to freeze for that split second. You see that all the time in football. The most confusing for those guys, because they've been double team, triple team for the longest time, you leave them unblocked and you have them decide what am I going to do here? And it's paralysis by analysis. So it's going to be interesting how they handle that, because no offense to SMU, if you go one-on-one with him, he's going to destroy your offensive line. That guy's a top 5 NFL draft pick.
That's everybody in the country. That's not an SMU shot. That's everybody.
Yeah, so you can't do that for him. It's going to be interesting how they handle that. It's going to be interesting how SMU also handles Tyler Warren, who's the best tight end in the country. Listen, you can debate that. I think he is, but it's going to be interesting how you handle that. How do you double cover him? How physical do you decide to get with him? I mean, he's going to play all over in this game. And then also their backup, Bo Pragula or whatever his last name is. I'm always terrible at pronouncing that. He's gone now. So if Drew Aller gets hurt, I have no clue what they're going to do at quarterback. So there's a lot of interesting storylines in this game.
I mean, they've lined the tight end up at multiple positions. Maybe they just go a little tight end wildcat quarterback situation.
Well, yeah, someone said that today. I think that's what Joel Klatt thinks that's what they would do if he did get hurt, because he's the only one left that's thrown a pass. He's thrown passes. He lined up as a center. So, I mean, who knows? But honestly, if you can take him out of the game, SMU, I think you got a shot, because their wide receivers don't scare you. Other than the game versus Oregon, they have done nothing all year. And that was in a dome versus a team that I don't think the defense is very good. So we'll see what happens. But I would take Penn State to win the game. Again, it's kind of like the Indiana thing for me. I could see SMU covering, but I could also see them losing by 9 to 10 points, and then you lose out on that. That's why Vegas makes all this money, because they set the lines beautifully. But I would take Penn State to win this game, and I would take the under here as well. I think it's an under game.
I think that feels fair.
So that is our playoff predictions. Again, guys, please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below.